of the Soniqs organization, Oregon, as Oxygen will be leading us off, not in the bans, but on the offensive side, as Soniqs will remove Sledge.
Oxygen generally comfortable to play onto this map as well, so it could create an interesting dynamic here if Oxygen is fully prepared to play this one out, but it's going to be a tough match, and that's saying it lightly. First ban coming out from the Soniqs is going to be the Sledge, not wanting to deal with those top-down angles at any point during the round here, and specifically for their first floor holds is one that's going to become the most relevant. Knock as well, going to be taken out. Knock still way too prevalent, specifically here on Oregon, for a capability to sneak in through either of the tower entrance points and really just be a very effective flank pinch, essentially, that almost often cannot be found out properly. So we're going to see her mitigated out as we are kind of used to here for Oregon. Azami next up as the first defender ban, and the final ban overall comes in from Oxygen. We'll see how Soniqs respond to that in a second. More than likely mirror something similar to that. No real reason why we would expect this to drift too far off course at this point.
Yeah, I really see the mirror ban coming through here. It's Oregon. You really don't want to give them access to something like that. There's obviously some other choices that can go with. We could potentially see something like a Kaid. I was feeling that, but like Kaid really isn't that big of a deal any longer, unless, you know, Oxygen, or rather Soniqs in this case, want to try and avoid working in EMPs early on, or rather into their offensive lineup. So we'll see how it works its way through, but that's kind of the big thing here. Kaid's kind of lost a lot of his luster since the patch, just because, well, there's so many impact EMPs about now, so really easy to try and get around him. But either way, that'll be our last ban here, and that'll launch us into the very first round of Oregon. And wouldn't you know it, it's going to be the basement.
Soniqs are going to be on defensive start as well here, so not too surprised by the operator lineup, especially with Mira left in play. Rexon immediately going to snatch that up. Gunnar as well, bringing the Warden in to try and counter out any flash dumps or smoke plays you might get out of the Oxygen roster. It's working quite well for these direct counters. Alongside that, though, usual spread of utility. The Valkyrie, of course, because she's been left in place. We're, of course, going to see her pick quite a bit. Jaeger for Geo just to get a little bit of that nade mitigation. And then, of course, the smoke from Kansan as the ultimate delay utility if they need it towards the end of the round. As far as attackers are concerned, they're not going to be bringing anything too surprising. Either Vertical just going to bring on the line. Heavy intel for him, and an expected rotation of operators aside from that.
A pretty interesting thing going on between these two teams before we get too deep here. I want to highlight Newers because we've been talking about him a lot this year and his ability to be such an impressive fragger. And John, wouldn't you know it, he's still in the top 6 of the entirety of the NAL by player rating at the current moment. But the thing is when you look right across the board over to Soniqs, not only do they have Rexon at a 1.3, but Grixer at a 1.27. And John, across the board, they have some of the best stats in the entirety of the NAL. It is truly disgusting what they are able to produce with those two. So we'll see if Oxygen can try and muster some more firepower to try and get around those two, because we haven't even mentioned what else Soniqs have at their disposal with the likes of a Gunnar, the likes of a Kansan, and people like Geo.
So the Soniqs sit nice and patiently and down inside, I believe, just the basement. I don't think they have an extension at all here. Maybe Rexon playing around with the first floor, but that's it as far as I can tell. And nope, the silhouette baited me a little bit there. He's down in the basement as well, so nothing being shown here by the Soniqs in the first minute or two of play. Oxygen will have full right to every other part of this map except the basement, of course, because they're going to have a lot of extra time to actually figure out their attacking route as well, be able to send drones in here, try to counter out the setup from the Soniqs if at all possible as well. But will come with that very dangerous other side of the sword where they are going to have to pretty much fully commit themselves to that execute and won't really be able to escape as is usual for attacking the basement side.
Yeah, Turtle's setup is always a really solid choice for the defense, but even more so when you have access to Mira, because you can battle off of those mirrors so easily for places like Freezer, really slowing down the Oxygen opposition. So we'll see how they want to try and work around that. They do still have access to Newer's frag grenades as well as some concussions on the likes of Sweater, and they have the means to burn as well. Vertical is going to be the big piece of the puzzle here, obviously, with those EE1Ds. He'll be able to lock up the Soniqs defense, nobody having access to something like a mute jammer or, you know, playing Vigil. So all of them will be forced to stand still as soon as that comes out. But they obviously can still try and fire back and have some solid drone info on Geo, but they've done a pretty bang-up job of slowing things down thus far, minus losing Grixer inside of Freezer Hallway.
Too much pressure coming on to Geo, though, as he's fighting against potentially 4 different players at once, just not having the support he needed inside of that situation. Oxygen strike true to start the game off, but we're going to see Gunnar exchange directly with Newers across a very long-range angle. Still keeps Oxygen in charge, but now down a player and another one to even things out as Grixer is able to take down Dream. Rest of the assault has been halted here at the pillar. Pillar as well as Construction Junction, as they now try to group themselves up to see what the next move is going to be. Foxay does see a cross, but is unable to capture it. Everyone else on the Sonic side going to stay pretty much full HP, except for Grixer, of course, who's brought down very low and now countered by Sweater. The advantage falls back into the hands of Oxygen as they bring it down to a 3v2.
Well, this has been so awkward for Oxygen, but they've been able to negotiate for another advantage here. They'll down Kansan and now have the opening to try and put a plant down. They know the player's in freezer. The shots go wide. Sweater with the pistol will take him down, and Oxygen get round one. A fantastic defensive showcase there from the Sonics in the way that they were able to mitigate the damage, stop the bleeding from Oxygen, who also hit kind of a weird plateau there. They drop down into sight, but they slow things down when they get the initial advantage. They really don't push themselves forward any longer, and that allows Sonics to come back into it. That big Nitro Cell kill inside of E-Box really standing out. That put that thorn right in the side of Oxygen. They tried, succeeded in stopping that bleeding. So now Oxygen up one round, and Sonics feeling as though they need to go back to this and try it all over again. And John, the gloves are off. This is a completely different strategy.
Yeah, way different, just in the operator selections, and I imagine that the overall play style is going to vary quite a bit as well here for the Sonics. The mirror has been ditched. We're going to see a cap can come into the fold, specifically for Rexen. It's more likely means we're going to be a much more aggressively stanced team this round two, and you can definitely agree with that when you see that we are already seeing quite a few members of the Sonics extend themselves up to the second floor. What's more, at the moment, just a set of utility, but more than likely is a sign that we'll see at least one or two of these players stick around for the long term to try and bait out more time from Oxygen. As obviously, with the turtle play in the last round, they just handed over the full platter of time to them. This time they're going to try to make it a little bit more difficult.
Okay, Oxygen, so what's our play here? Starting in from the west. Got plenty of info game to try and play around this. Not only do they have the hologram that they can use from Newers, but they have those EE1Ds to try and lock down Gunner if he wants to try and stick around that area, but more than likely not. He'd want to try and work his way back to some more key defensive points to where his teammates could potentially assist him. And speaking of assisting teammates, Foxy's doing a bang-up job of assisting his teammates in this info game. Notice where Rexen is upstairs, and they've got some solid crosses along this, but you can see that they've accounted for this with some of the rotates as well as the hatch being open for the kitchen drop. Rexen's going to lose a lot of HP, but that might be from the nade or potentially a crosshair. Not a nade, so it looks like that damage coming from the game's window that Oxygen was supporting earlier on with that top clear. So they'll get some damage off onto Rexen, but that's about it, minus taking control of the top floor.
Things go a little bit quiet after that. Gunner still with a chance to strike from the interior port partition of the security room as well. So we'll have to wait and see what he can potentially bring out in a moment. Drone is going to start to work through his part of the map, but he hasn't been able to evade it for the time being. No spot of intel coming in, but that'll now change with Gunner being discovered. Thankfully, actually miscalled his position a few seconds ago. He's actually right at the wall that leads into meeting. He'll breach through that without a problem since he's on Oryx, of course, and proceed back down into the basement. Doesn't want to stick around to risk the actual fight. Way too much of a dice roll on that one. Just falls back into the actual basement. What's going to play the usual turtle. There's nothing saying this team can't play into that style if they absolutely need to, but they are wanting to waste the time away, and so far are doing a pretty good job of that one here. Oxygen only just now starting to approach the extremities of the actual breach, and even then, they still got to clear areas like meeting room here, and we're already down to just over a minute.
Now, this has been a super solid round from the Sonics. I love that Grixer's staying on the roam as well here and forcing them to check these corners. They don't know if he's inside of meeting or potentially downstairs inside of laundry, given in the ERC7 and how it affects the drones. So Newers is going to try and drone things out once again here, but it looks like he's going to try and get a drone all the way across the map into this position. Sweater will take down Rexen, and Grixer might actually get punished depending on how this drone rolls. It'll see him, but he gets through. Nobody there to try and cover for the drop. He'll tag Foxay and be able to skimp her off back to site successfully.
They're just trying to pre-fire, see if you can catch the rotations from the remaining members of the Sonics that still might be lurking towards the big tower, but as you guys of course can tell at home, all that has been peeled back entirely by the Sonics. All four members now deep into the site, ready to fend off the execute when Oxygen is ready to present it. But that's the next step for Oxygen, of course, figuring out the intel down here, figuring out the setup down here, as well as the wrinkles that'll come with it, such as this corner position from Geo. More than likely will trip up some of the initial players from Oxygen. Oxygen, though, changing up their own play style here, is they're going to go for the freezer take. Instead, Kansan catches the initial bout for that, but Dream able to trade one out. He gets flustered, though, forced out into the open, leaving it himself open for a potential exchange to come in. Hasn't been fully killed just yet as the frags have continued to roll in for OXG, but now Gunnar will activate, take it away too. The plant down for Foxay, but he is immediately shut down as soon as he gets his head up from the case there. Plenty of time for a counter defuse. The Sonics will respond and tie us up at 1-1.
The grown game works for the Soniqs, able to extend that timer on the mid floor and make it super difficult for Oxygen to try and get too much information as to what was going on the actual site. Now, they do get the man advantage, but the Soniqs still have some very solid crosses on the entry points of the site, so it makes it pretty easy for them to put Oxygen into dire straits. And past that, Oxygen not really able to try and get it back in any certain sense. They really had to hope that the cross paid off there from Freezer, but Gunnar just too dominant in the moment and able to take down that Freezer position, making it nigh impossible for Oxygen to try and pick that round up. Looks like we might have a technical timeout coming in here, folks. We'll see what happens here. And yes, indeed, we're going to reset things here. So the scoreboards are going to be wiped, but obviously we will still keep the 1-1 when it comes to the actual rounds.
Maybe. Okay.
Oh, wait. No.
Yep, I guess we don't need the rehost.
Yeah,
so
I think we're good to go.
Let's head back in game, because I think we're actually good. I guess it was just a momentary sound bug.
Yeah, we did indeed get debated.
Blame the players, folks, not us.
Exactly. I always blame the players, John. It's always their fault. But you know whose fault it isn't? It's Sweater's. Or not Sweater's fault. Oh my goodness gracious, that was terrible phrasing. But past that, Sweater's already been really lighting up the scoreboard here, able to get some really big entries for Oxygen, but Soniqs finally able to make a big stand on their defensive end, really giving Oxygen a lot of trouble inside of the early round, running amok of that timer, and overall, again, making things quite difficult for them to try and process when it came down to the latter part of that round.
Good spam coming in from Gunnar there, but unfortunately too short of an opportunity. Not able to get the full kill going against what I believe was Newers. Foxy now keeping a close watch on that, of course, now he proceeds towards it himself. So you can see Gunnar, a few of the other members of the squad, still trying to waste the time away from this third floor position on the tower. Gunnar, ready to take a potential challenge from down below as well. He's going to get adventurous, try to proceed forward, gets the hop down onto the... Oh man, this is going to be close, but the Oryx boost helps him out a little bit there. Clears the distance and is able to get himself back into the basement. Nicely done from Gunnar. Not a situation you're necessarily expecting yourself to escape from.
A great clear from Oxygen, though. They don't get the kill, but in great time. I mean, they've got control of the entire big tower. They forced Gunnar out, and they already had somebody swinging in from 205, so I'd say they're well within their right to still able to abuse that timer later on and take this round. Geo, he's going to get locked up on main stairs. A peek here from Dream, but he gets decapitated by the ump. Geo now just needs to stick to his guns, and actually, beautifully enough, he's able to make it down a hatch and away from Oxygen. They'll get it back on Gunnar, though, and it'll still maintain a 4 versus 4.
Things are going to start to get very tense, of course, for Oxygen, losing those players and knowing that Soniqs are playing out and about right now. Gio's still a factor from the back tower stairs and may try to reignite himself at a later point in the round with low HP. Might also have to think twice about the way he goes about that. Oxygen also keeping watch over this as Vertical. You can see they're on T2, keeping his position well primed to counter up any shenanigans that Gio may try to get himself into once he finally feels the need to pop up from the basement. But at the moment, doesn't really need to do that. Oxygen is wasting time holding those counter angles against him and not clearing things out on the second floor here, which is going to start to become a real issue as we've now once again entered that final minute of play. And there's fairly limited map control at this point for Oxygen. Vertical is the big difference maker in that since he has access to the attic position, but as you're going to see, Soniqs are very well aware of this. The Toxic Babe now coming out to counter his potential push forward. Going to get very one-dimensional at the moment and more than likely forcing a time to wait that out before they can potentially proceed forward. Rexit, though, going to be found from down below, I believe. The skeleton key from Sweater downing him, and he may not even be aware of it as of yet here. Might have just been an accidental shot that went through the floorboards here. Rexit with a good chance to bring himself back, but not so much for Gio. He tries to adventure forward past Sweater and ends up going down to him.
They will be able to get Rexin back up. Grixer shifting over into Bunks. What a shot from him. He'll be able to at least shut down some of the Overwatch, but they've got both lanes closed down. Vertical's gotten off the plant, though. Foxy's going to pick it back up. He's going to start the plant now. Oh, some crucial shots missed from Kansan there. Such an unfortunate time to put that SMG 11 down. He gets caught off guard from the trophy position, and Oxygen with another offensive one.
Yeah, Oxygen is remaining incredibly stalwart in their positions they maintain on the attack here, not really giving the players on the Soniqs any opportunity to throw their own aggression, such as what you saw from Gio in the late round there, successfully at the attacking force from Oxygen, so it's making a much stronger push for them. It is causing it to take a very long time for Oxygen to get themselves onto the site. But for the time being, it is allowing for things to work. We are going to go into attack technical pause, excuse me here, folks, as we are having that sound bug once again. So bear with us for a second while we try to fix that.
Yeah, unfortunate circumstances befalling Soniqs in the current moment, but I don't think it affected them at all in that last round. Obviously, they were the people to be like, hey, everything's fine. Let's jump right back in. So either way, Oxygen with a very solid round 3, able to take it to the Soniqs. And, I mean, some interesting stuff that we've just seen across the board thus far. You know, those back-to-back basement defenses from Soniqs, the initial, you know, more safe setup with the mirror windows and everything not necessarily working out. It was Soniqs' early aggression that got the best of Oxygen there. Not even in the kill department, but mostly in map pressure. It made it so difficult for Oxygen to try and work through things. But then when it came to this top floor defense, the Soniqs were able to at least negotiate, you know, for some control across the map. Gio with some very solid plays around main stairs and able to get off and, you know, extend that play, make it to where he has a potential to flank later on, but it never came to fruition. You know, it made it to where Oxygen were able to wrap around the site and not really worry too much about what was going on. In fact, Sweater was not only managing some of the players on site with that skeleton key, but he was also dealing with the roam game all at once. So it wasn't really too much sweat off of Oxygen's back at the end of the day, and the Soniqs end up giving that round up off of the execute.
So Soniqs dropping one that realistically could have fallen under their control, just not able to get enough control over the attacking presence from Oxygen. Looks like we are coming to the tail end of this tech pause, folks. We appreciate your patience. Thank you very much for waiting with us, but I believe we are ready to get into the game once again. So let's head into round 4, getting started in just a second. And if you are just joining us, Oxygen, surprisingly, is in front right now, but only by 1 round at 2-1 here. So let's see if the Soniqs can rebound on what's going to be another second floor defense and bring things back under their own control.
It's feeling like opposite day with these first 2 games. I mean, I know you picked Astralis for border, but let's be honest. If you look at the stats, it was not the greatest decision, but you did make the right decision. So, I mean, sometimes when you got a feeling, you got a feeling.
It's all about
right?
that feeling.
Exactly.
I had a little feeling for Oxygen too. That was too bold of a pick though.
This one was very bold.
Yeah.
You're talking about the monstrosity that is the Soniqs roster in the NAL right now.
I was only really feeling it because of the map though, was the thing. Like knowing that we were going to Oregon, when Oxygen's generally pretty comfortable in Oregon.
Yeah, but so is Soniqs. This is one of the most played
that's
maps
why I
last 2
picked
years.
them. That's why I ultimately picked them, because I was like, all right, Soniqs' consistency over the last few weeks, plus their own comfortability on this map, absolutely they should win. But look, that's not happening right now.
That's very true. That's very true. Yeah, I definitely echo your sentiments there. But for this round in particular, Soniqs are going to have some extra time to consider what their next move is going to be. It's going to be a top floor defense. They'll bring the Maestro for some extra information, as well as a mute to hold up these walls. Alibi along for the ride as per usual. She's actually the most played defensive operator in the entirety of the game right now. Just given the circumstances of her utility. You got that Bailiff secondary for rotations. You can bring impacts or a deployable shield. She's got an MX4 Storm with a 1.5. And then past that, you still have her primary utility, which is pretty good for blocking some pretty critical lanes that people like to use to try and adopt some angles. So she's just a very solid choice to help your team across the board. So always pretty easy to work in.
It's again slow beginning to this round. Oxygen has not shown us any feeling that they want to try to get hyper-aggressive. With that said, though, we nearly see a battle between FoxET and the player currently holding on the inside of Kids Dorms there. Just a little bit of a tit-for-tat through the barricade, though. Nothing either team will potentially fully commit to. FoxET, of course, now up on the roof, is going to be regrouping with the rest of his teammates in just a moment here, and Sweater as well. Primed in position to try to finish off the rest of this barricade should the need arise, but definitely wants to keep it in place here. He's got other things to worry about. We'll wrap over to regroup with some of his teammates. They've already taken, I believe, full big tower control for themselves. Small tower is still yet to be claimed. Of course, Rex is going to be here and be very annoying as he throws out one of those alibi clones that is going to give out the big red text in the middle of the screen for Auction until they can send someone out there to shoot it, which thankfully is going to be a pretty quick task. Looks like FoxET's already on it.
Yeah, FoxET begrudgingly crossing the front lawn to take out this Prisma so that everybody's screens are finally vacant. That quite annoying bold red letters flashing at them as somebody is detected outside, but luckily enough for them, no longer. Instead, it's going to be the explosive payload next as they'll blow apart the master wall and look to see what they can do with these splinters they've now created in the defensive setup. Looks like they've got some angles to go through the floor here. Don't really know if those are created by the offense or defense. It looked like that. Looks like some access points from something like Sweater down low. But Newer's really the key to this one as he's standing inside of Trophy. They'll get rid of the evil eye that could detect him crossing through. But there's just another one lying in wait immediately into the left-hand side of the door. And this one's going to be a lot more difficult to bunker bust for the offense.
Evil Eye coming in handy for Gunner at the moment, able to snipe out at least one of the drones working its way in. I'm sure a few more will potentially be presented before the execute comes out from Oxygen. With that said, though, Foxay certainly looking for the first strike for this team, but not going to be able to find it. It's Rexon to take down Sweater from the Trophy side. Instead, eliminating him. Rexon still ready to make another play here from the top of White Stairs. It was never stolen away, and it doesn't seem like Oxygen can take anything away here realistically. All 5 players from the Soniqs still standing tall. That is, of course, until Vertical activates on the attic push. He's finally able to knock down at least one in the form of Kansan. There's enough between him and Foxay to get the job done. Well, Foxay strikes true on a second one, but that's as far as he will go. Left down to only that one remaining member of the attacking lineup, and they'll run out of time, unfortunately. So the Soniqs take control of this one and tie us back up.
An extremely slow-moving offense there from Oxygen, given the circumstances of how much control, quote-unquote, they had initially with the skeleton key down low and, the wall being popped for Master. They just really didn't have anything going on when it came to the big window, attic, and or White Stairs side. And that made it towards Soniqs could play a lot of very strong angles in towards the entry points of Oxygen. Specifically, what we saw with the Alibi there, being able to maintain control of White Stairs. That doesn't happen too often, but when it does, that is one of the prime examples of why White Stairs is so important to that top floor setup.
So as the Soniqs look to try and take control of their lead, they will have to do so on their basement hold as they play out those previous 2 rounds, both on the upstairs. Of course, making their first floor hold no longer a requirement to be able to get back into the good graces of the basement here. Away from that, Oxygen bringing us with a very similar line to what we had seen for the basement attacks prior. No real reason why they need to bring a dramatic change to their strategies. What they have been showing us has been working for the most part. We are going to see a little bit more of a drawn back play this time from the Soniqs. This is what failed them on the initial attempt. However, this may be a little bit more of a hybrid. We do have players poking up from the stairwells, but nowhere near the commitment that we saw back on round 2 is going to be present this time.
No, they're just sweeping up the last little bit of stuff before they clock out of the mid-floor and head back downstairs, John. You always got to clean up shop before you leave work, right? So looks like Soniqs will get that done and head back down low and await the arrival of Oxygen, who are quick to deliver. We already have a Sweater here on Armory Stairs. He's donning the top of it right now, but as we were talking on before, Soniqs have not dedicated themselves to the roam game this time around. Instead, they've stuck Gunner back onto the Maestro that we saw for the top floor defense. We've got Rexon with the Mira and everything else making quite a bit of sense as to how we saw the Soniqs defend with their turtle setup the last time around. We're really leaning into Geo here to try and work his head around a lot of the positions that Oxygen are going to be throwing, these flashes and grenades. He's the only one that can prevent it. Now, obviously, you do have Grixer that can see through things like stuns, but those goggles do not do a lot for frags.
More windows have been set up. We are going to see more of an intel window there, more than anything positioned on the inside of the site. As you can tell, not really any angles to play around that one, so just more of an alert to when the actual execute is going to end up coming through. The second one, I believe, is in its usual freezer counter position, just to try and open up a free angle for the defenders playing in laundry onto that approach. Oxygen are not heading that way, though. As you can see, a 3-stack currently on the back tower stairs with the E-hatch already open. So going to be priming themselves to work down there to start things a little bit earlier this time from Oxygen as well. They realize that time may become an issue as they begin to work themselves into the basement, so they want to leave themselves with as much excess as possible to facilitate the full execute. And so far, it's worked. Catching the aggression from Grixer, bringing him down to half HP. Now Sweater finishes him off, I believe, with a construction push.
And Sweater's going to eclipse the amount of kills that he had in his last game, but way less deaths. 8 deaths the last time, only 2 this time around. Such a solid showing from him. Sure, going to slow things down just a little bit. They'll deliver things on the EE1D front, but nobody moves an inch. Seeing if Soniqs wants to try and fight back and fend off Oxygen even further. What a push from Foxay, though. The skeleton key, it isn't just for breaking up flooring. It's also still a shotgun. A nitro cell goes out, but it won't take out any Oxygen members with it. Kansan is trying to make a grand stand here inside of Elbow, but you could say that about the remaining members of the Sonic squad as well. Look at all the angles they're currently dedicating themselves towards, trying to shut down Oxygen right when they try and push in for these key moments on this site. We see Rexon out of a nitro cell, and so is Kansan. Got no way to try and defend this, minus killing the man planting. So many bodies for Oxygen as well, and Soniqs can get none of them. Oxygen shut it down. What a beautiful offensive half this has been.
Potential strategical mistake made there by the players on the Soniqs as well to choose to play this back, choose to play it against what was already shown to be a very, very good clear on the inside defense from Oxygen back on round number 1. They challenge it again with a slightly different operator lineup, and it yields almost the exact same result. Oxygen with just far too much control for that take once they get access to the back stairs, and the players in the Soniqs just do not have enough firepower to contend against it.
I'm telling you, by the end of this stage, Doa's going to have to melt that coin down into like the shape of an L and give it to all of us, because like this thing is predicting so many weird circumstances. I'm telling you, I have so much faith in Soniqs' defenses coming into this, just given everything that we've seen this stage, how Oxygen's been performing, how Soniqs have looked, and you know, they should be just about as equally as hungry, right? Maybe Soniqs even more so because they're trying to go to the major. But right now, Oxygen are putting together quite the offensive half, and it looks like they want to cap it off with something that we don't get to see too often, unless your name is Parabellum and you happen to be the player called Spirits.
5 seconds left before insertion.
So away from that,
That's
Oxygen
is
going to be looking to Oxygen is going to be looking to swap out Foxay onto the Blitz here, and he's not the only one that's been changed out either. Blitz, of course, a massive surprise to anyone who does not regularly watch our broadcast, but if you are a regular viewer, and specifically of this map, you will generally be expecting this. Here we go. No prisoners being taken by Oxygen. They proceed directly to the interior of the site. Foxay immediately shut down, though, so the Blitz brought for basically nothing. Gets that one flash out, and that's it. Kansan has also traded out a second member of this team now by trading out Sweater. So far, a 5v3 advantage to the Soniqs.
Oh.
The gamut from Oxygen not working out here.
That was just
rough.
Rough is almost an understatement, because I'm like 90% positive that Oxygen rushed into an elbow that is completely sealed. I'm pretty sure that Geo sealed it completely off. So them entering from that, you know, point of contact, not the greatest idea. Even with the Blitz, like, it's still like you're fighting for territory that is completely locked down and safeguarded from Soniqs. But either way, Oxygen still with some opportunities here. It is a 3 versus 5, and with Newers alive, I mean, anything is possible. They still got vertical with the E1Ds as well. Newers is going to be able to clamber down the main stairwell, unbeknownst to Soniqs. So definitely a play opportunity building.
Seniors ready to proceed forward here off the E1D charge. Only a tiny bit of intel going into the hallway, though. Dream succeeds, and so does Newers. Dream with the double on the back end, by the way. Soniqs are going to suddenly panic. They have no one left in the site. It's just Gunner and Grixer. They were extended. They were out and about looking to challenge Oxygen on a normal clear. That has not happened. Suddenly, Oxygen have made this very bold take work for themselves just off a proper intel read. Beautifully turned around by them. Very well could be looking at a 4th round, but at the same time, Gunner as well as Grixer not done just yet. Grixer is, unfortunately, but for Gunner, let's put this into a 1v3. Going to try to clutch it back out. It's a dash over towards Laundry, panicking after the flash is set his way, and Vertical finally to shut him down from the primary hallway. That's 2 for 2 on the attacks in the past 2 rounds from Oxygen, and they're going to steal the lead away from the Soniqs.
It's a 4-2 split in favor of Oxygen, and that was the offensive side of Oregon. Very, very impressive stuff coming out of OXG here. You know, especially with the way that they're able to work out this 3 versus 5. Dream with some massive entry capabilities. He's been so stalwart this entire stage. Oxygen obviously have had a pretty rough ship that they've been trying to guide through this, avoid as many rocks as they can on the way. And it seems like they're finally having a break in the channel there, John. Things are starting to open up into calmer waters, and it's all starting against the #1 team in North America right now.
Soniqs potentially could be facing against only their 2nd loss of the stage so far, against one of the few teams sitting way down at the bottom of the leaderboard as well. Oxygen currently in 9th place for the league with a 1-5 record. Soniqs have the polar opposite of that. But Oxygen potentially about to very much push themselves to a very surprising position here if they can take the win versus the Soniqs. We have those qualifying probabilities locked in down below as well here. You can see it for the players on the Soniqs for Oxygen. It's already locked in. They will not be able to qualify themselves, but the Soniqs needed a regulation win to be able to fully lock it in for themselves, looking more and more unlikely that we will not be able to get that. Still, of course, looking great for them even aside from that. As you can see, even with the loss here, there's still like a 99% chance, but would have liked to have locked things in today, and it's looking more and more likely that that's just not potentially going to happen. Kansan with the first strike on this round, though, as we start the second half off, knocks out Sweater, brings things quickly down to a 5v4.
Well, the Sweater's offensive side is quickly going to be sunsetted as soon as we open their defensive half. And now Oxygen are once again going to have to fight from the downward position. Soniqs haven't gotten too much control just yet, but at least taking down Sweater is a solid start. They're trying to clear out this top floor and make sure that no Oxygen members are allowed to coexist with them throughout some of the more important parts of this map, minus the actual site. They just want to make sure that they can force them all back downstairs. Vertical's trying to prevent this from happening, so he'll be playing inside of Meeting. He does have the escape hatch open for himself, and Soniqs still very aware that there's a potential for Oxygen to try and rebuff this mid-floor, but nothing just coming yet until Newers, well, he's going to climb inside of T1 for Big Tower. We'll see how long he sticks around, but Vertical's looking like he wants to hightail it out of here as well, so we'll see how Oxygen respond as Soniqs begin to pressure.
Soniqs start to work their way forward throughout the rest of the clear, and as such, Oxygen will need to respect that to an extent and begin backing up themselves. You just saw one dropping through the meeting room hatch. More are going to follow as we get more and more control sent over towards the Soniqs roster. You see Kansan ready to pop things open here just to clear out meeting room. Like we mentioned before, most of the Oxygen roster has already well fallen back from these positions. They're not going to be at any threat at this point. The Soniqs will have to proceed towards the backstairs area or a few other spots on the map to really challenge any of the more aggressive positions from Oxygen at this point. Otherwise, they are sitting nice and tight, tucked down below inside of the basement, waiting for the actual execute to come through. For the rest of SQ here, they are taking no chances on this. They want to make sure that every box is checked before they make the descent themselves. That's explaining a little bit of a delay here while they try to line up positions to use these Candelas and their other utility to begin working into the freezer. I imagine other parts of the basement as well for the next few seconds.
Well, the fantastic news is that when it comes, it's going to be hot and heavy for the Soniqs. They have so many Candelas as well as these concussions built up on Kansan, and not only that, stun grenades as well on Geo. So we'll see how this entry game works out for them. Remember, Oxygen down a man in this situation, and it's going to get even worse here as Foxay will be DBNO'd. Dream will be able to pick up one. Rexon with the refrag. Gunner not able to find anything just yet, but this timer is eating at them. We need a place to put this plant down. Vertical still allowed to exist here in Freezer. Some nice shots, but oh my, the Sonic quickly sweep everybody under the rug in the dying seconds of the round, John. We only got to see one person get bodied in Freezer Hall, but the Sonics are so quick, it doesn't even matter.
Once again, beautiful work from the Soniqs. It was looking desperate for them, especially at the tail end of it as we came into those final seconds. But just when it looks the bleakest, they shine the lights on, show up with those Candelas. And in reality, the Candelas didn't even actually amount to a whole lot for the Soniqs there, just kind of shuffling a few of the positions for our defenders. It was that final push in the last few seconds finally made things work and surprised Oxygen with the sudden probably aggressiveness in which they worked their way in.
I mean, let's be honest. I think it surprised all of us that an orange thing popped up at the end of that and said Soniqs won. I was blown away at the fact that they were able to knock out the remaining members of Oxygen without a plan even being attempted. They took the frag power right to their doorstep and delivered. Fantastic stuff from SQ so far.
So the Soniqs will start to route their way back into this game just as quickly as they fell behind it. Only one round behind the overall scoreline from the Oxygen roster right now. OXG still, of course, in the lead with 3 rounds to go until a regulation victory. It's going to be tougher to achieve here as the Soniqs, of course, seem to have awakened on the attacking side. They're going to be looking to continue that trend. Oxygen, though, just like we saw from the Soniqs on round 2, going to be doubling down on their defense, extending it out past the basement, feeling that the kind of bunker setup that they were forced into in the late moments of the round did not play out too well. They want to be a little bit more aggressive this time, just as the Soniqs were on their response round. So let's see if it works out as well for Oxygen as it did for the Soniqs.
I love this lineup that we're having from the Soniqs here. They're going to bring the Flores in, and with that partnered along with Iana as well as Ophia, you actually have 8 explosives to use across the board here and deal with this defensive setup that Oxygen have mustered. These deployable shields are going to be the most annoying aspect of this, minus the Banshees that'll be strung throughout. But obviously you have to really avoid Foxay's magnets at the end of the day. That's going to be a little problematic, but the good news is they've got enough stuns to be able to get through this. And also for Gunnar, it's not really a problem. As long as there's no mute jam or anybody to get ahead of his drone and shoot it, then he is well within his right to move those in and be able to take out some key pieces of defensive utility. Sweater's going to be at least holding on to Big Tower for now. I don't know how long he'll be sticking around there. We saw Newers try to play very similar positions, but nobody from Soniqs trying to push over there and give him the fight he wanted so badly.
Soniqs continuing to patiently wait for an opportunity to catch a more aggressively lean member of Oxygen, but have been unable to find it as of the past 2 minutes here. Doesn't mean that we're not going to see it, though. As you can tell, Oxygen once again trying to lean up from those staircases, wait and see if a fight is going to be presented to them. They, too, are being met with not a whole lot here. The Soniqs are very well aware of this aggression here, having dealt with it already in part on the previous round and obviously watching the VODs from previous matchups. So they're going to be checking that as you saw that top-down angle being established over the laundry stairs. We got this Terror drone trying to sneak its way through, but just short of the barricade it was probably intended to take down. Will be shot out there. That utility will be wasted. Thankfully, Gunnar has 3 more of those. Doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of time to throw them out, though. It's going to be the big problem here. Just over a minute remaining, so we can probably see another 2 go down. An attempt to be thrown at the players from Oxygen. He'll sneak this one off. That'll probably force a little bit of a reposition from Dream.
Oh, man.
May actually be eating it.
There's so many ways this can go wrong, John. M590 in hand. Rotero drone, the thing is, folks, that works both ways. Stun out, yeah, it's going to be able to get Dream, but is he going to be able to stay alive? Nobody managing the hatch for that angle. He gets one. Oh, my goodness gracious. It's a bloodbath in Freezer. The Butcher Dream finally gets taken down by Rexon. It's going to be a 3 versus 3 that Soniqs now have to try and wrap their head around, and Gio is so very injured with that case on hand.
Rest of the Soniqs still looking to make their way down into the depths of the basement here and finally commit to clearing things out against the Oxygen hole. Vertical strikes true, though, to keep things consistent for Oxygen. Another pickup now from Gio, though, to respond to it for the Soniqs finally. You can see Foxay beginning to wrap on the potential flank here. Will he be able to shut it down? Well, he won't even need to, as Newers does it all. 2 kills for him at the end of the round, and he shuts it all out, giving another very much-needed round to OXG as they maintain their lead just when they were 1 round away from losing it.
Well, the Soniqs are able to at least get some movement out of Oxygen and make some, plays to be, or make some plays open and readily available to them. Now, the big thing is that, again, we didn't see them really deal with Freezer in a proper manner. Dream is able to just catapult himself right back into that stairwell, given the positioning of a lot of these players. That is always a really difficult spot to try and deal with from security as well, because the angle there just isn't really giving. Like, there's really no way to see him if he's down past that table, so you're really hoping that the concussions and just the overwhelming utility usage is able to get one over on Dream, that you win that engagement because of that. But the big problem was that Soniqs were off on timing. He's completely unblinded, and he's able to use his shotgun to its fullest potential. That's what everybody's so worried about when you pressure a smoke in a situation like that. Yeah, the toxic babes are annoying, but that M590 can put you in a grave in an instant.
So with the timeout coming to a close here, the Soniqs, it will become a do-or-die time for them as they're running out of opportunities to bring this back under their own control. Oxygen just 1 round away from denying full point coverage and as well denying the outright major qualification that the Soniqs might have been able to birth from this game as well. Just takes 1 more round to get them to that point. More than likely still going to be looking at the Soniqs attending the major regardless of the outcome to this match, as like we talked about before, and we had those probability chances up on the screen. It is still something like a 99.9% chance, even if they do end up taking this one in regulation. Or I think to some extent if they end up losing this game too, but obviously would have liked the full securities. There is still that slight story arc where they could end up not making it, despite how well this stage has gone for them so far.
That would be, I don't even know how you would try and describe that story.
It'd be almost as surprising as Oxygen making the major at this point.
Yeah, yeah, I would definitely say so. Soniqs have quickly ran it up here in stage 3. Now we do still have 3 play days, and as you guys have noticed, we've been doing a lot of discussion as to who's going to majors, what SI points are looking like, and everything in between. And both of these teams in pretty hot contention for both of those things respectively. Oxygen practically a shoe-in for SI. Some unbelievable circumstances have to befall them in order for them to not go. So you can practically just say it's going to happen, and it more than likely will. So past that, though, Soniqs and the leader of the NAL at the current moment attempting to fight back from a deficit 5-3. And they've already gotten Kansan in upstairs. This is a great lead-off positioning for him here around Armory. They've probably already gotten rid of the camera as well. Gunner's going to be watching Rexon through his drone, just making sure that he puts those OSA shields where they need to be.
You bored? Like, we'll see what else he's potentially going to be able to work himself towards in a minute here, though. Ah, that's what he was waiting for. He actually couldn't take the drone in because the window wasn't busted yet. So now that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, be patient.
I mean, I'd assume we're already like a minute into the round. That's usually one of the first things that happens. But
You're going to open the window before you put the shields down? You think that's a good idea?
okay.
Okay, there we go.
All right, fine.
See, guys, that's how you, right there, that's how you fix your rank stacks. You see how easy that was? You see how easy that
fair
was?
counterpoint.
Oh, man. I love my job.
I'm just a very impatient person.
Just open the window and get the Twitch drone in. Get this
Some
wall open.
shotgun action lurking up here for Dream. I think it's going to be a bit more delayed, though.
I can't believe it was a minute 30 when they opened that wall. Can you believe that, John? My God. Soniqs, taking forever here in John's mind. No. Oxygen, very solid positioning here. They've got the smoke in a pretty aggressive spot as of right now, but Dream, big key point here, try and trade yourself out. Get those smokes out of your pocket. We do not want to see him dying with any more toxic babes in that backpack. Oh, well, there it happens. He's going to have one, but Geo with a pretty wide swing here. I don't know where it came in from. Seems like a big window presence, but it's actually going to be Rexon. The bodies, Newers, and Oxygen are getting diced up.
Indeed, they are down to only 3 members remaining of the defense here. Vertical with a bottom-to-top angle, but it seems like the Soniqs, yeah, are very well aware of that position. Vertical not going to be a surprise to anyone from this spot. Apparently, he'll be a surprise to Gunner, though, as he is not ready for the swing as he tries to proceed down Classroom Hallway. That's another frag picked up. Corrected, of course, now by Kansan as he takes down Foxay. That negates a lot of the attic pressure that was going to come out for the defense. Pretty much requires Sweater to be drawn back up to the top side now. The same for Vert, but they are both locked down here in Classroom Hall. No way to counter the plant. It goes down convincingly for the Soniqs. We're going to see these last two try to wrap their way up through the front stairs here and work themselves back into the site. But now being brought down to a 2v4, and with their intentions pretty much revealed, it should be a quick shutdown for the Soniqs. There's one. Sweater survives through flight at least one more time here. Trading out onto Grixer, but still 3 more kills to go. And he's got about 15 seconds left to actually get onto that case as well. More than likely a solidified round, and there it is for the Soniqs.
Extremely solid stuff from the Soniqs. Fantastic patience, especially, working that big double side initially, getting OSA set up with all the shields, getting the angles opened up for OSA to make it to where Oxygen aren't able to rotate around the site to respond accordingly to what Oxygen are doing with that master wall. And it puts everyone in a little bit of an awkward spot. You know, we had the aggressive smoke play there from Dream, and he gets crossed out by Geo, as well as the remaining pressure coming in from the Soniqs, and just making it so difficult. How often do you see somebody die from that cross from big window there? That's only something that Rexon can pull off, given the fact that he's OSA. You're able to slap that shield down. It's much safer to play around that area, and since he's been existing in that space for so long, John, Oxygen are now used to it. It's not something that's existed there for just 10 seconds. It's existed there for a minute and a half, and now all of a sudden you're being shot from it.
Problems presenting themselves for the Oxygen rosters. It seemed like they were carving ahead of this situation, but now starting to fall behind yet again. Soniqs at this point, just a few rounds away from being able to tie us back up, of course, and take the lead away to potentially still give themselves the full 3 points out of this game. That's what they're looking for, of course. Absolute certainty in their qualification to the major here, especially against Oxygen, who has been, unfortunately, a little bit lackluster throughout most of this stage, suddenly showing up not only today's matchup, but the previous one as well. Against the Soniqs, though, definitely a bit of a matchup they want to win for their own sake more than anything, as Oxygen still holds the lead here. Going to try to crush it a little bit further and lock in that 6th round on a second attempt to hold on to the kids' dorms upstairs.
I love some of these angles we're seeing from Oxygen here, especially this breach inside of the attic wall, creating that long angle, some assistance that Vertical can get from the player inside of there as well. So solid stuff. Soniqs going to be starting things in from the west side. Big spoiler there, especially when it comes to Oregon. This is usually how we see teams go about things. Rexon's going to quickly get back on drone and assist in the clearing of this mid floor. It really seems like Sweater's the only one to exist here in a pretty usual spot for a mute given this site. He's going to be holding down security and seeing if he can befall any of the Soniqs members attempting to rotate in and take him down. So he's going to be able to get rid of some drones here, at least initially, and Soniqs really not paying him too much mind. Instead, it's going to be Kansan. He's quickly going to make his way to the top of White Stairs. He'll get rid of at least the sensor here. Could give up his positioning, although more than likely already know that he's in this area. Lasergate going to turn off. He knows he's so very close to that door frame, and Kansan just trying to chase the pixels of his shoulder peeking around the corner.
Foxay sitting back, waiting for an opportunity to excel himself here with the aggressive position that he's leaned into towards the exit of the freezer stairs. So much trepidation coming in from both sides of the coin at the moment here. Neither team wants to make the wrong move. That's been the problem. It seems like no matter move you make, someone is going to step their wrong foot forward here eventually. The Soniqs will have that forced upon them sooner rather than later due to the time beginning to crunch. Down to a little over a minute here. Oxygen with still plenty of control, especially toward the front lobby areas such as classroom and those laundry stairs. Really looking to surprise the Soniqs when they finally feel the need to commit themselves to the top. And we'll really just have to wait and see how this will pan out. So obviously, at this point, I would assume that the Soniqs would be somewhat aware of the lurking presence from downstairs, but they have no idea of Foxy's position on the inside of Classroom. He takes down Geo for free at the start here. Sweater as well catches Grixer trying to come to the top of the laundry stairs to trade things back out. And another successful push, this time from Sweater to take down Rexin. Beautifully played by Oxygen. It's all falling to pieces for the Soniqs. Kansan, the only one left, and even he's at low HP in a 1v5.
Sweater and Foxay abuse the labyrinth that is the downstairs of Oregon to its fullest, getting done with so much across the board for Soniqs. I especially love the decision from Foxay to not pressure white stairs too much, instead rotating over and getting ahead of the push, John. He knows that the Soniqs have to eventually make a play, especially for that main wall. That's something that they hadn't accomplished just yet. He gets ahead of that, and not only that, but he's got Sweater in tow, down low as well, and it just makes it to where they can play off of each other so well. They can use any of that information around the space, like the nitro cell, to prevent the plant from going off up top, or just a positioning around that master closet area in general, right here, the top of main stairs, rather. So again, just a fantastic showing there from the Soniqs on their roam game, able to avoid Oxygen time and time again, or rather, shoes on the other foot. Oxygen with an amazing roam, able to circumnavigate around the Soniqs time and time again, and really get one over on them. And that's not something that you usually see happen to Soniqs either. They're usually very solid on their info game and trying to keep those rotations shut down.
Well, even better news for the Oxygen fans at home, and arguably even worse news for the Soniqs fans as well. We're going back to the basement. Things generally favor our defenders quite heavily. Time to see if they can lock in one final hold on this one to secure what would be a 7-4 matchup versus the Soniqs. Soniqs not going to be changing up anything to a huge degree. It seems like they're aware they're heading back to the basement, so we still have Gunner, for instance, on those Rotera drones, alongside a usual amount of utility that we would expect from this squad. The single hard breach on Geo just to knock out the hatches. Don't really need anything else beyond that. And then the usual execute utility between Kansan, Rexin for the intel, of course, and Grixen on the Twitch for the comfort pick.
Yeah, Rexin and Grixer not having the greatest day right now. Rexin -7 and 9. Grixer, he hasn't even been awake for this game practically. 3, 8, and 5. That's something we never see happen to him. And it's all call signs of Auction having a pretty swell game. And you can see that just across the board, especially for Sweater. But the rest of the frag team showing up to play. Foxay's had some big plays, but he's actually at the bottom of the pile. It's really been Newers and Vertical that have stepped up to the plate. Dreams had those highlight moments where he's been able to rack in quite a few kills, almost half of his kills coming inside of one round, actually, as he was able to muster a triple. But that's what it takes to try and take down a gargantuan squad like the Soniqs, and what they've been doing all of Stage 3, you really have to show some respect towards. So, tip of the cap to Oxygen, what they've been able to do thus far today, but they've got to shut out this game.
Just one final round is all they need. 2 opportunities to get it done as well. Very, very tepid at the beginning of this match here, or at the beginning of this round, not wanting to potentially show anything against the Soniqs, but the Soniqs very much giving out that same type of vibe right now, clearing out everything to the fullest extent. As you can see, Kansan has gone for like a T3 clear, even everything like that. They want to take no chances here. This is not a team they should be losing in regulation to, but they may very well not have a choice here with the way things are going. With the defense that Oxygen are putting up on the front lines here, Soniqs have constantly been faltering. A lackluster performance for some of their stars is at least just part of the reason why we have seen that. Once again, a massive surge from Oxygen these past few weeks is another good reason. Seems like they may be finally coming back into form while it's too late to change up the storyline for them here in Stage 3. 2023 may still hold a lot of potential for this Oxygen roster if they can get things together.
Somebody dethaw Mariah Carey. It's almost Christmas time. It's right around the corner, man. It always happens like that. I'm like, oh, you know, we haven't even hit Halloween yet. And then I blink and it's my birthday, which is January 25th. So it's like, it just happens like that. Really quick transition, but Oxygen are looking to abuse that full amount of time to try and prove that this squad is worthy of a berth at SI. This last minute could be a testament to that story. Vertical, he's got an angle here, and he's almost got a headshot. Oh, so very close as he dances back and forth between the two holes created by the Soniqs opposition. Oxygen at least done a solid job of slowing down the take here for the Soniqs. It's boiling down to this. Newers has the cross, able to play through the smoke. Vertical almost with another, but it's going to be Rotero drone to force his rotation. He'll die to Geometrics, and that has to be it. They have to go for the execute now. Oh my, it's a sea of orange. Geo starts the plant. Dream has one. He's got two, but there's no way in hell he clutches this, right? SMG-11, he'll slap a mag into that and a quick rotation out of the Soniqs. They've got some very solid positioning, but it's a triple for Dream. Oh my, smoke out, nobody inside of E-Box and some long angles to worry about. Do they have any frag grenades? They do not. They only have stuns. No Roteros either. Dream, he's almost done with this. Confused, but Gio's gonna get there just in time. Yes, the Toxic Babe does some damage, but it's not lethal enough to prevent the pressure.
Respect to Soniqs for handling that in a simple way as well. Not trying to overcomplicate the situation to get him off of the defuse or use utility to bait him off of it. Just let's take the direct duel against him, flash him out as well, and make sure that this player goes down without any contestation against us. Beautifully done there. Make sure that Dream didn't get away from it. We saw a very nice clutch from him a few weeks ago. Didn't want a replication of that. So Soniqs are able to push things to our final round of regulation at least, but now at the same time, Oxygen still has an unused tack timeout. They're going to bring this out, see what they can potentially change up for their final round, as they do have a little bit of a curveball to throw at the Soniqs. We'll wait till we go back in game to talk about that, though.
Yeah, this is going to be some pretty hard decision-making here. Do you go back downstairs? Do you try a different site? I mean, that site right there could have been one off of Vertical's, kills alone if he's able to secure those through the hatch. He had some great opportunities there, and he was just missing by pixels. And, sometimes that's all that separates you from a round win. Those lead-off picks could have slowed down Soniqs even further. Not only that, but the man advantage then would have been in favor of the defense, making it a lot more palatable for them when Soniqs go for their execution. But, I mean, unfortunately enough for Oxygen, they're not able to take advantage of some of those situations that were presented to them. And for the Soniqs, they most definitely did. They bowled over the first two players of the Oxygen defensive setup. Made it look pretty easy when it came down to it. Minus Dream getting some pretty solid kills off there at the tail end.
So the wrinkle is going to come in the form of Oxygen finally going to their first floor defense this time around. They did have, of course, the basement available for a reach. I'm pretty sure second floor should have still been locked away for them, but this one is going to be their only other option, so they will go for it. Will lead to some interesting operator picks as well, most notably the Bandit coming out for Foxy to block out access to a few of the rotation walls downstairs, just make the process of clearing things out and setting up for specifically probably the stage door play, but I would imagine towards the kitchen as well. That type of execute, just want to make that a little bit more difficult, a little bit more troublesome for the Soniqs to work their way past, and they actually did not bring a secondary EMP to deal with it. So there's going to be a little bit more trouble they may be reckoning, depending on where Fox is able to slap those down at.
There's a ludicrous amount of soft destruction on the likes of Soniqs. Buck, as well as breaching charges on Ace. We have Ash, and then breaching charges on IQ as well. So not much great secondary utility. We've got stuns on Rex and some frags on Kansan, but really that's just about it. Gio's got the Claymores, but we haven't been seeing too many teams get really aggressive when it comes to the hop outs on Oregon. So could be utilized somewhere else and potentially work out, but we'll just have to see. Foxy, he's calling the ball really early here, John. He's brought the Bandit to try and play for the single panels inside of meeting. Now, this is a really solid setup, especially with the fact that the Soniqs only have a singular hard breach. They didn't bring anybody else. They only brought Gunner on Ace. Rexon does have the opportunity to bring secondary hard breach on Buck, but they said, no, we don't want that. We want the stuns instead.
Already a minute gone from the round. Soniqs are clearly taking their time with things here on the opening patrol that they'll go for up on the second floor. Foxy, of course, sitting just down below, looking to counter that out when this aggression starts to curtail itself over towards the connector leading into meeting. There will be some time before we reach that point in the round. Oxygen having their more aggressively lean defense postured out in a few other spots on this map too, but Grixer might have a window of opportunity here. You can see the divide's been open. Grixer expecting to come from the left side of this angle, though. Aggression in and of itself. He's right to assume so as well, but now that he's been revealed, too scared to stick around. Won't get an opportunity to try and capitalize on that additional member of Oxygen that was still positioned on T2.
Solid patience, but great awareness from Oxygen will allow them to know what's going on in the moment there for Big Tower. Going down to this last minute. Yes, it's been a lot of negotiations, but no damage dealt to either side. I think that's finally about to change, but no, we've been hoodwinked. Instead, it's going to be the hologram that walks its way down the hallway of cans, and that did obviously seem a little alien there just for the moment. Nobody else on Soniqs really around to try and help, but they have to push in somewhere, and Oxygen absolutely know that. Frag grenades out. They see two inside of the kitchen hallway. Gunner, he's got the plant going down now. Oxygen will be able to pick up one, but Dream with the move. They've got the case control now inside of kitchen. Dream, can he hit some big shots? He can indeed. He has been a demon inside of these games so far. These rounds have been off the back of his efforts. It's down to Rexon, but Foxay will body him. Oxygen get their second win of the entirety of the stage. And not only that, John, it comes against the #1 team that we have to offer, and the likes of Soniqs on one of their most known maps.
Oxygen going on a little bit of a run here towards the end of stage 3, and what an impressive run at that as well, able to knock down the current #1 team in this stage. The Soniqs unable to contend and falter in the final round of regulation here, dropping the match 5-7. As you can see, Oxygen with a lot to be happy about right now. Last week's victory was a good first step for this team to start moving themselves back towards the top, but this one is a sign that they still can do it. They still can indeed take down some of the best. As for the Soniqs, a few players unfortunately not in the game today, and as well falling apart in the final moments of so many different rounds here. Seemed like they had the elements needed to control it, and while